Hey guys, last video I made, we talked about training and racing with a power meter, and we're going to continue that series with this video today. I introduced last time functional threshold power, average power, and normalized power. We're going to talk about 3 other key metrics that you need to know to get the most out of your power meter. Now, the next metric that I really want you to know is variability index. Now, we talked about normalized power versus average power really depending on how variable a ride is. Well, your variability index, which is outputted by softwares like Training Peaks or WKO, will tell you just how variable that ride was. How much variation due to surges or just poor pacing that ride was. Now, when we're looking at a triathlon, especially like a relatively flat or rolling triathlon, we want that variability index to be at 1.05 or less, and really as close to 1.0 as possible. That 1.0 means that you were pretty even the whole ride or race. Whereas if you're in a draft legal triathlon or a draft legal crit or a very hilly or poor paced race, you could see numbers up to over 1.2. And so we want to keep an eye on that. The same athlete on a non-draft triathlon could have like a 1.02, and then in a draft legal triathlon could have a number like 1.22. This is very normal and very common, but especially in a non-draft race, we want to keep an eye on this and make sure that we are keeping that number on the lower end so that we're pacing it well. Now, the next metric I want to talk about is intensity factor. Intensity factor, also known as IF, you probably see that on your ride files, IF. And this is a ratio in decimal form of normalized power as a percentage of FTP. So at what percentage of FTP were you working in a decimal form? Now, what's important to realize is that decimal form can be converted over to percentage. So if you see something like 0.7, that is 70% of FTP that you were working at. Now, we can really use this to pace or know how we pace a race. And so when we look at like a half Ironman type effort, you might have hit like, let's say 200 watts, and you look at some of your competitors and they hit 250 watts. Well, was their 250 watts equal to your 200 watts? Depending on kind of where their FTP was. Well, your intensity factor will tell you that. So in general, for something like a half Ironman, age groupers will typically pace that at 70 to 80% or 0.7 to 0.8 of IF, okay, or of normalized power. Whereas a typical pro can push that a little bit harder, and they will typically be at 0.85 or 85% to 0.9 or 90% of FTP. So they're able to get out of themselves a higher percentage as it compares to normalized power. And so it's important to know this to see how hard you are working compared to normalized power to kind of the average and what normally we would want to pace that at. Now, the last metric that I want you to know is training stress score. Okay, now this is the effective load of a workout. And the way they figure this out is it takes intensity factor, and it also multiplies that by the duration or how long a race is or a ride is. And this tells you exactly how hard that ride was. This is really great for comparing one effort or to another effort, or a workout to a race, so that we can simulate a race with our workouts. And so if you had a TSS of 1.0, this means that you were at functional threshold power for 1 hour. Now, if you had a TSS of over 1.0, this means that you were working hard or well, you were working hard in for longer than 1 hour, or you were working at a moderate pace, for example, for an even longer time. So this takes into consideration, again, what your intensity factor is, but also the duration of the workout to be able to determine exactly how hard the workout was or how hard the race was. And by looking at TSS, you can figure out exactly how you should pace a race, as well as how we need to train to be able to mirror what type of effort we're going to have to do in that race. So this can be highly valuable in not only pacing a workout or a race, but also analyzing the race after the fact to figure out if you went too easy, just right, or too hard. And so knowing these metrics is key to your success with using a power meter.